you talk about chemicals a lot. What problems have been linked to chemicals in the environment? So what hasn't been linked to chemicals in the environment? Autism, ADHD, allergies, developmental problems, cancer. Increasingly, they're all being linked to chemicals in the environment. I'm going to read you a quote from Donna Furillo, the director of program research at the Autism Society. I also included this in some of this information in the piece that I did on autism. We live, breathe, and start our families in the presence of toxic chemical mixtures and constant low-level toxic exposures, which we've talked about before, in stark contrast to the way chemicals are tested for safety. So I don't need to go into it again. Lead, mercury, and other neurotoxic chemicals have a profound effect on the developing brain at levels that were once thought of as safe. So that just says it all. As I've said in the past, babies are now born pre-polluted with 200 industrial toxic chemicals in their bodies, and that's just from exposure through their mothers, basically. How can that not have an effect? How can these not be linked to these problems? When we have spiking rates of pediatric cancer, and autism is up 600% in 20 years, how can we not look at these at the dramatic way that our environment has changed over the last 50 years or so? But the manufacturing industry's position remains firm, and they continue to lobby that regulating chemicals will hurt small businesses, leading to increased production costs and job losses. As a result, there's still 84,000 chemicals that are used in commerce that have never, I repeat, never been tested for children's safety. They're in fact tested on a 6-foot-tall, 200-pound man. So they're really not even tested for safety on me, let alone my kids. So these chemicals are supposed to be regulated by the Toxic Chemicals Control Act, sometimes referred to as TSCA. But guess how many chemicals have been restricted since TSCA was passed in 1976? 5. Yes, 5. So luckily, it looks like this may be the year for some significant changes in the way that we regulate toxic chemicals in this country, and that is just such good news. So new Senators Elizabeth Warren and Tammy Baldwin are expected to come out as strong supporters of Senator Lautenberg. He's been a champion of this for years. Senator Lautenberg's Safe Chemicals Act. Also, there's the re-elected John Tester, who's an organic farmer as well as a senator. Who knew? Safer Chemicals, Healthy Families, which you need to check them out if you're a parent. They are amazing, and I'll put the URL here below. So they're predicting a debate in the full U.S. Senate next year. The Safe Chemicals Act now has 28 co-sponsors and the support of Senate leadership. So that's great news. And there's some interesting other, industry self-regulation potential that's going on too. The Bisno Guide to Safer Chemicals was released recently, and that the goal of that is to help companies begin adopting safer chemicals prior to regulations that are hopefully going to change. So finally, how about those business owners fighting chemical reform because they're scared that it's going to hurt jobs? So recently, a national poll of 500 small business owners found that 75% support stricter regulations of chemicals used in everyday products. Sounds like what I believe too. 87% support government regulations of chemicals used in growing food. So yes, absolutely. And you can see, things that I've done on GMOs and pesticides and eating organic when you're pregnant, all of that relates. 73% support government regulations to ensure the products companies buy and sell are non-toxic. 91% support chemical manufacturers being held responsible for ensuring their chemicals are safe, something that we don't do, surprisingly. 76% support tax incentives for companies that innovate to provide safer chemicals. Now, that makes sense, right? 92% support regulations to protect air and water for pollution by toxic chemicals. So this comes into play when we talk about things like fracking, for example. And 78% support government regulations to reduce air pollutants linked to environmental and health problems. So maybe it's not the small businesses that those lobbyists are interested in at all. Maybe it's the multinational companies that benefit financially so much from the lack of regulation in this country. Just something to think about. So if you like more information like this, please subscribe. I post videos every week on Friday. Please comment. I'd love to know what you think. Have you heard of TSCA? Have you heard of the Safe Chemicals Act? Have you learned about what Senator Lautenberg's been doing for the last couple of years? What do you know about it? Is it something that you're interested in? Is it something that you're supporting? And yeah, please tweet me questions every Friday. I'll be here. Tweet me questions at Rachel L. Sarnoff, and I will do my best to answer them. Thanks.